Brad, can you talk about the midterms that are coming up? Joe Cotta, who goes to our fellowship, he's running one of his slogans, which I appreciate because it's true, is resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. These are Christian moral virtues and issues. The midterms are coming up. I saw that the Senate is split 50-50, 40, when I Googled it, so give me some grace on this, but it was 48 Democrats, 2 independent that tend to vote Democrat, and 50 Republicans. It was 50-50. A situation maybe where the deciding vote would be Kamala Harris. If we get to it, Roe v. Wade, different issues that are coming up and prevalent in today. It's important the way we vote. It'll change our state, it'll change our nation. So November's coming up. What would you say on this issue for Washington, and how can you, sometimes I get defeated because the church doesn't vote. I mean, statistically, if Christians were to get off the couch and vote, it would change our state. It would change my kid's life or public school. My kids aren't in public school, so that's not a good way to say it, but you know what I mean. The policies of our youth, all the way through religious liberty and what put us in bondage morally is because of the policies that are enacted by the leaders in our government. So that's my soapbox. But what do you say, and how important are the midterms coming up, and how do we get Christians to go out and fill out their ballot? They don't even have to go out. That's the thing. Is it just put it in the mail?
So, Christians, how do I get you to vote? Those of you who may be watching this, I talked to someone last Friday night who told me, and they're 37 years old, I've never voted, ever. And I was beyond my imagination to hear that. If you do not participate in the election process, we were so much better when God ruled us, and he was sovereign over his children. But then we demanded, way back in the Old Testament, a king, and now our founding fathers were so wise, they gave us a constitutional republic. A constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. That word is not found anywhere in the Constitution. We're a constitutional republic. And so we elect people to represent us. They go to our governmental agencies representing us. So it is so very, very important that you vote. If the church, that you vote, it would rise up. If every God-fearing, Bible-believing person don't know who to vote for, ask someone who does. I can't tell you how many phone calls I get prior to the elections from people asking me who should I vote for, because it's not just what people say, it's what's the character of that person. Because I've seen people can say anything, but are they truly the person that they're putting themselves out there to be? Because some people can put quite a front out there. So you got to do your digging, you got to do your research and find out not just about what the person says, but who is that person really. So it's not easy, but you've got to do it. You've got to get involved. Your nation, your freedom, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren's future depends on your involvement in this election. And if you don't know who to vote for, ask someone. Pastors, if you have done the research, you know somebody who has. I know a lot of pastors who put out pastors' picks for their congregation. They don't tell people how you must vote or how you should vote. They just say, this is how I'm voting. If you want to look at my ballot or who I'm going to vote for, then you can vote for these people. So that's something that you can do. So it's imperative. Please, Christians, please get involved in this election process.
On that note, the 508 versus the 503, where you're not allowed to talk about some of the stuff that Brad mentioned not that anything he said was wrong, but you got to be careful because a nonprofit's not supposed to endorse whatever.
Right.
Does the 508 change that and give you more wiggle room to say stuff?
You can endorse who you want, favor a particular party over another. All those pastors' picks, they can be from just one side. You don't have to give. Normally, under a 503, you are supposed to, if a church is going to host two individual candidates, you have to host whoever is on the ballot or from both sides. You have to give each party opportunity to talk. Under the 508, you are not obligated to do that because your tax status granted to you by the IRS. You have chosen it. And even with the 508, you still get those tax deductions. It doesn't change anything other than your ability to endorse candidates and to speak out politically. And again, the reason that this came into being, the whole 503, 508, was after Kennedy was shot, his vice president, is it Johnson? I'm blanking on the name
Yes.
right now. But when he ran,
B. Johnson.
yeah, LBJ, the Southern Baptists were very much against him, and they were very vocal about it, and he did not like that. So he went to the IRS and had the 503 tax code made up, essentially, in order to silence the churches. And what that has done is pervasively shut the church's voice down. And people don't want to get involved because they don't know or they're concerned about who they're voting for. But if you look in the last 50 years alone, since that tax code came into place, even less time, look at the shift our country has taken. Look at where we are headed. And the time is now to secure our spots and our children's spots for a country that is not steeped in idolatry as we are now, that has not pushed God out. Look at how quickly Satan has come in where God has been pushed out in the last 10 years, 5 years, 2 years. So it's really important that you all get up, get out and vote and convert your churches to a 508 if you're concerned about being able to speak out on these topics.
And I love what you're telling or encouraging people to do. I encourage you to do that. Go for the 508. But at the same time, I've heard pastors say this, and I hope it's okay for me to say this, but I've heard pastors say, fine, take away our tax exempt status. You are not going to silence me as a pastor. Mm-hmm. I will speak the truth, and you, the government, will not tell me what I can and cannot say. So if you're coming after my taxes to tax our church, tax away, but you will not silence me. So where are the men and women of courage? Pastors and Christians, fellow Christians, it's time to mount up with wings as eagles, to run and not grow weary, to walk and not faint, and be strong and courageous, and let's get this done.
Yeah, because it's gonna go there, eventually. Mm-hmm. It's not the tax thing or whatever. Eventually, it's going to go down to whether it's right between you or God. You decide. Yet the gospel is going to be to the point where you're either going to stand up and preach the gospel or you're going to kowtow for whatever reason. So.